Good evening. This is Professor O, or my name is Sade. I am a therapist. If you initially saw my Hillman talk, talking about self care and identifying who you are and what you want, we're going to start the year off right. So, this is the official first class to this 10 series course. There is going to be a limited version here that I'm going to post on TikTok. The extended version will be on my YouTube, which is at the Barefoot Therapist, 2 T's at the end. On YouTube, please subscribe, follow me, because of course this series will extend far beyond the Hillman talk. My goal is to provide educational information and self-care information, everything from questions around growth and care of families, parenting. That's all here on my TikTok and there on my YouTube page. So please follow, like, subscribe, share. We want to get more of us engaged. So the first class today, I want to say, is just an introductory. That video, the initial video, was an introduction. I had zero plans on turning it into a course, but since everyone decided that that was something they really loved, which I do it quite often, I'm not sure why that was the light that struck the fire or whatever you call it, but it just was. So we're going to get started with this 10-part series. This first one is defining who you are beyond your roles. So the first question I asked was a bit of a slap in the face, simply because usually I do these quick and fast videos for people to get something quick and dirty. But I want to do a more in-depth series, i.e. the 10-part series around personal growth, identification, and exploration. So quite often, a lot of us get defined by our roles: a daughter, a mom, a wife, a supervisor, a businesswoman, an employer, a therapist. We have so many roles that we take space in, that they take life in and of themselves in their own separate spaces and collaboratively at any point in time. But what I found is, when we focus only on the roles and responsibilities we hold to other people, we forget that we are people first. Before I am a mom, before I am a wife, before I am a PTA president, before I am an employee and an employer, before I am a business owner, a creative, and all these things, I am defined as an individual person, separate from all of those roles. Those roles enhance my personhood. They are not the totality of my personhood. And if I have struggles defining who I am outside of those roles I will hold myself captive to, simply because I'm afraid of what I will be without them. You heard exactly what I said, and if that resonates with you, I want you to write it down. I want you to take notes throughout this space, because we're not going back, we're only going forward. If you hold yourself hostage to only those roles, that's also, when you see people becoming people pleasers, people being or reinitiating these roles with their parents that they lived in their childhood, because they're afraid of what it will look like if they use their voice and advocate for themselves. Or they get out the enmeshment, right? And they separate themselves. Codependency. Who am I without this person? How do I let go of this and still be a great thing all on my own? We were great things far before we were enmeshed with anyone else. The moment you came through the vaginal canal and or were cut out of it, you were great all on your own. What appears to have happened sometimes is there becomes a space, obviously, when you are a child, where you want to make your parents proud of you and you want to be looked at as loving and all the beautiful things. And somehow you then start to define yourself by the things you want people to believe versus who you actually are, and not investing enough time in figuring out who that is. Because for whatever reason, when kids when we send them the message that that person that they show up as naturally isn't good enough, they're going to try to be the thing that's good enough, or at least the thing that they think in our eyes is good enough or gets the attention. If you didn't receive the hugs, the love, the attention when you were being the person you naturally were born to be, but then when you became this character, you seem to get all of the things that your natural personhood didn't get, you're then trying to pivot and say, okay, well, this person seems to get all the things that I need. Let me go lean into this. However, this then beautiful being on this side gets quieter and quieter, and the light dims further and further till it's damn near black. It's damn near black there. You can't even see. It got lost in the sauce, not because this person, this being, this beautiful experience didn't deserve it. It's people didn't know what to do with it at the time, or they lack the capacity to understand it, or they lack the capacity to give of themselves in or with this beautiful thing. So they didn't nurture it in the way that it deserved. But that didn't mean that it didn't deserve it, and that didn't mean it was any less valuable. So a lot of that is you starting with differentiating who am I versus who I decided to become as a result of the things that I learned about myself and the people that I loved. Who are these two different entities? How are they similar? How are they different? What justified me leaning into this thing, person, place, or thing that doesn't necessarily resonate with me, but is how I've survived thus far? Because that's survival. We've all had to survive at some point. We've all learned to survive in different spaces, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those skills are absolutely important, especially for the space that we are in, environmentally, societally, politically. Survival is necessary. But if we get into a space where we are surviving versus living more often than not, we are going to get more of what survival requires, and that's constant chaos and crisis. Constant chaos and crisis. You can't let your guard down. You're always on edge. You can't figure out why you're so anxious all the time. Survival. Survival requires a different level of thinking. Survival requires a different level of being. We have to show up differently when we are surviving versus when we are living. Those are two different ways of being. I don't know why that wasn't okay for you, but I would question that first. At what point did I learn who I naturally showed up as wasn't okay? What was that moment? Whether it was at school, whether it was at home, what did that look like? And at what point did I decide to survive as someone else, as something else, or only as these things? And if that's not the case, and if you've become a well-rounded being, why are you here? Something about this resonated with you in a way that questioned your why. And so my challenge for you would be to identify what is it about the way that I'm living that doesn't sit well with me? Is it the way that I feel? More often than not, or pretty consistently? Is it this unfulfillment that I get out of the work I chose? Is it these relationships I have that don't feel authentic? Like I don't feel like I can be honest with them or myself? What about your life feels that uncomfortable or unsituated that you're here? Your roles are a part of who you decided to be. That is not something you automatically have to get, other than being a child of someone, being a daughter, being a son, being a he, she, them, they. That's something you didn't decide, but you've decided all the other roles and responsibilities. So if you decided those, you can also decide not to engage in those. Now, of course, there are responsibilities, pros, cons, consequences, benefits that come with all of that. But that is up to you. The beautiful thing about choices is that you can always make another one. The beautiful thing about choices is that you can always make another one. Don't limit yourself to choices that you don't want to be tied to anymore. Figure out how you can engage differently in those roles. There is not one way to do anything. That part we will continue to figure out, especially when we go down the road of passion and purpose. But I would encourage you to get the Finding Me workbook. Starting next class, we are going to do some worksheets out of those. I'm going to give you some homework out of those. But I really want you to focus on how your roles and responsibilities have defined who you have become. And is this the person you want to be? And again, if the answer is no, I want you to go back to that first video and I want you to ask some of those questions. And if you don't have answers to those, I want you to put it down in the comments and I want us to explore your why. Because our next class is on passion versus purpose. But this is all in identifying who you are, what you want, how you've got to this particular point. If it, again, go back to the question of, if it was all over today, are you satisfied? And if the answer is no, we got some work to do. If you want to explore more outside of these particular courses, I do offer coaching. I also offer counseling if you're in the state of Virginia. I do talks. I do a lot of work. I love workshops. So I've done workshops with book clubs or groups. So if that's something you're interested for, a more intense version of the work, reach out to me. We'll see what we can do. But I can't wait to see you next class. I want you to answer those questions so you can come prepared. All right, I'll see you next time.